Hey, this is Chris. Hope you're doing well, and welcome to Popcorn Finance, the show where we discuss finance in about the time it takes to make a bag of popcorn. I think we sometimes think of personal finance as a very technical topic, but I find it to be really highly emotional, like from the guilt caused by our past mistakes to trauma and hang-ups that have been caused by experiences with our family and friends. I think money really goes way beyond the numbers. It's not just an Excel spreadsheet. And so to help me talk about this, I have the one and only Paco de Leon, founder of the Hell Yeah Group and author of the upcoming book, Finance for the People, joining me here today. So Paco, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Your voice is so soothing. I feel like we should be playing like smooth R&B hits and not talking about finance. Maybe that could be our side project. I'll rope you into that.
All right, let me know. If we got a musician on standby, maybe we can get some background music for these podcasts going.
Love it. Love it.
I read that you were working as a debt collector for a bank in Brea, which stood out to me. Being from Southern California, I was like, I immediately know that city. I used to live not too far from there. You wrote, I was raised to believe that people only confronted the details of their financial transgressions and misfortunes in dark, shameful solitude, not through casual openness with strangers. Why do you think we all pretty much have the same shame around money?
I think that the shame is a few layers deep from what the cause is, really. Everyone is going to have all of their different reasons for shame. I think when it comes to shame and guilt, oftentimes it's because we have acted in a way that is outside of what our expectations for our behavior was. So like for me, not being able to do well at within traditional employment, I always felt shame and guilt about that. But then I realized a traditional employment structure just doesn't work for my personality and my work style and how my energy flows. I think the real root with money is this very common theme that all of us have internalized, that we shouldn't talk about money. And so I think when there's not this openness to talk about money with our parents, with our grandparents, with our cousins, aunts and uncles, with our coworkers even, which to me is the gnarliest thing of all, because you're literally at work to get money, but you are all like doing this weird thing where you don't talk about it. It's very bizarre. That is such a deep-rooted seed. And from that seed, so many different, kinds of plants grow in terms of shame and guilt and why we don't address our finances. So that's my take on that kernel.
I love that point you said where we kind of set these expectations for ourselves, and then when we don't meet them, then we feel like a failure. You're like, oh, I've let myself down. I feel like this happened to me so many times where I'm like, no one's even said anything to me. Like no one said, oh, Chris, if you don't do this, you're a horrible person, you're failing. But somehow I set this own goalposts in my mind of, well, you need to do this, you need to do that because you saw this online and read this article and you're not doing that. And now I'm just all, upset because I'm not where I think I should be for some reason.
Yeah, there's all these little tiny narratives that sometimes they don't feel like they're conscious, right? Your parents don't sit you down and say like, if you don't get a finance degree or something that's very like practical, we're not going to love you. They don't say those words, and it's not true. It's just absolutely not true. But when you're younger, you make these very simple jumps in logic, right? Where it's like your dad, like for me, my dad was always like, go to college, don't get married. You have to go to college first. And so that in my mind morphed to like, well, I better be like a serious person in society because that's what my dad expects of me. But really what I think he was saying was like, you don't need no man to, depend on. You know what I mean? I think his message was actually super feminist. But for me, I was like, oh, I should probably like be like a very serious person with a finance degree. So until we take the time to kind of sit and look at why we're reacting in this way, why we're being emotional, why we feel this shame and guilt, we'll just continue to loop those narratives in our head.
Okay, so two of my all-time favorite guests and good friends, Julien and Kiersten, have a new book coming out. They're the creators of Rich and Regular, and their book is called Cashing Out, Winning the Wealth Game by Walking Away. Even though this is the point in the podcast where an ad would normally be, they didn't pay me anything to say this. I'm just extremely excited for this new book, and I really just want to support their work. If you want to know more about the book, this is a book for professionals who just feel like they're stuck in their jobs. I've been there many, many times in my career. and it's for people who feel overwhelmed by money and just want to live a more purposeful and rich life. I know that I've learned so much from Julien and Kiersten through their work over the years, and this book will just be a continuation of all they've learned and shared. So if you're looking for a great read that isn't your typical glossary of just a bunch of financial terms or your standard overused career advice, pre-order a copy of Cashing Out. It's available for pre-order from all major retailers, or just click the link in the show notes. I don't know if I've talked about it here on this podcast yet, but I've done, in different interviews I've talked about how I've started going to therapy. Maybe it's been, 6 months, a year. I don't know how long it's been now, because time has no meaning anymore. But one of the things that was really great about it was you start to acknowledge the things you kind of say to yourself that become like this ball of anxiety and stress that once you acknowledge it, you're like, oh, that wasn't really even that big of a deal. I was kind of stressed out about nothing, but it seemed like the end of the world. So now, like, if someone's like, okay, I think I'm blowing some stuff up in my head, making it a bigger deal than it really is, but I need to try to address it. How have you gone about addressing some of these things, especially like in the money guilt we all feel? How have you gone about addressing some of these to kind of move past it, or at least start to kind of deal with these issues?
I think there's so many ways that you can attack it. You have to find what works for you. The greatest lesson that my therapist taught me was it's okay to feel your feelings. It doesn't encourage us to feel our feelings. It really doesn't. It's like all the commercials for us to buy stuff, the underlying message is you need this and you'll feel better, or you'll belong to this group and you'll feel better. And I really believe that we're entering this new phase of consciousness where a lot of people are talking about feeling your negative feelings and going to therapy. And it's not because you're broken or messed up. It's because we're just looking inside of us and saying, hey, what's going on in there? Who am I? And how can I navigate my life experience in a way that just feels healthy and good? And sometimes to get there, though, you have to feel bad and you have to sit with that and address those things. And until we integrate that aspect of us, I think we'll always be chasing this idea of I shouldn't feel that way. And then once again, to bring it full circle, that's where the shame and the guilt come in. And it's okay to feel bad, and we have people to help us. So therapy was really great. Journaling, which I asked the reader to do in the book, and I have a lot of prompts. That helped me a lot. Vigorous exercise regularly. Sleeping 8 hours a day is really, really, really underrated. Drinking enough water helps a lot. If you hit a lot of those baseline things, then you'll be able to be set up so that you can do some of this emotional and mental heavy lifting.
It's one of those things where everything is so interconnected. Like finance is, you're dealing with numbers and money and bank accounts and all this stuff, but that directly impacts and intertwines with so much of your day-to-day life, with how you feel, how you're dealing with stress, how productive you're going to be at work. All those things kind of play into money and how it kind of touches these different areas that we don't really acknowledge or kind of try to push it away. So that's a money issue. That's not a stress issue. That's not the reason why maybe I'm spending more than I should. And I know I shouldn't, but I can't really figure out why I keep doing this and falling into those same traps, or why I say I want to save or I want to, get ready for retirement, but I can't because I don't know. There's something that always comes up every time I try to start working towards those things. Paco, I really could keep talking to you about this. I wish my show was a little bit longer so I could dive into some more stuff in your book. But if people want to grab a copy of Finance for the People, or if they want to just connect with you and learn more about what you're doing, where should they go?
You can go to thehellyagroup.com. Every Wednesday, I put out a weekly email newsletter called the Nerd Letter, and that's how we can stay in touch.
All right, perfect. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes so that way people can easily go find it. And Paco, it was great having you on. Thanks again for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again for joining me here on the podcast. If you enjoyed today's topic and you want to hear me talk about maybe something you're interested in, you can send me a voicemail by calling me at 707-200-8259. Or as always, you can reach out to me on Instagram just by going to @popcornfinancepodcast. And lastly, you can send me an email to questions@popcornfinance.com. And last but not least, this week's kernel is going out to Tanny Kamikaze on TikTok. I hope I'm pronouncing your user handle correctly, but I'm just going to call you Tanny for short. Tanny put together a great little review/commentary on an episode I did recently, the one about how much millennials are spending on first dates. So Teddy, thank you so much for the shout out and for listening to the podcast. I really do appreciate the support. As always, I appreciate you joining me here for another bag of popcorn. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, boy, keep it poppin' like Mary Poppins.